For many men, strength is often measured by the obvious: broad shoulders, a loud voice, or a commanding presence in a room. But Sigma males embody something different. Their presence alone can shift the atmosphere, not because they try, but because they don't. This is where the paradox lies. Sigma males rarely see themselves as intimidating. They aren't chasing validation or trying to prove a point. They're simply living in alignment with their own values. Yet without realizing it, their independence, their silence, and their refusal to bend to the expectations of others often unsettles people more than aggression ever could. Think about it. A man who doesn't need approval is harder to control. A man who doesn't chase attention is harder to understand. And a man who carries himself with quiet certainty is harder to ignore. That kind of energy can be deeply intimidating, even when the Sigma isn't trying to be. What's fascinating is that most Sigma males underestimate this effect. They assume they're simply being themselves, keeping to their own lane and minding their business. But in reality, the way they carry themselves makes others second guess, hesitate, and sometimes even feel insecure. In this video, we'll take a calm, thoughtful look at 6 subtle but powerful signs that a Sigma male is far more intimidating than he realizes. As we go through each sign, you may recognize qualities in yourself or in someone you know that highlight just how much influence quiet confidence can truly have. Let's begin. Number 1. His silence speaks louder than words. Silence is often underestimated, but for the Sigma male, it is one of the most powerful tools in his arsenal. People live in a world saturated with sound, constant chatter, notifications, background music, and endless explanations. Our brains have become conditioned to expect noise, and when that noise disappears, it can feel unsettling. This is why the Sigma's choice to remain quiet carries such weight. His silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It leaves a gap that others instinctively rush to fill, often exposing their own insecurities in the process. What seems like nothing more than restraint is, in reality, a subtle form of influence. Psychologists have long studied the effects of silence in human interaction. Research shows that when a pause lasts more than 4 seconds in conversation, people start to feel discomfort. They interpret the silence as judgment, disagreement, or disapproval, even if none of those feelings exist. This is why negotiations, interrogations, and even therapy sessions use silence as a tool. It encourages the other person to speak more, to reveal hidden thoughts, or to justify themselves unnecessarily. The Sigma male, who is naturally comfortable with quiet, wields this effect without even trying. His lack of words becomes a mirror, reflecting back the anxieties and assumptions of those around him. History offers countless examples of leaders and thinkers who understood this power. Abraham Lincoln was famous for his pauses, often letting silence stretch until his opponent filled it with rambling. In Japanese culture, the concept of ma, the space between sounds, teaches that silence can carry as much meaning as words. Even in modern business, the most effective negotiators know that the person who talks less usually gains more. The Sigma embodies this wisdom instinctively, standing apart from the noise of the crowd. For many people, this quiet presence is intimidating. It breaks the script of social interaction. When someone doesn't offer reassurance, small talk, or immediate responses, others are left to confront their own thoughts. They may wonder, what is he thinking? Does he disapprove of me? Did I say something wrong? In reality, the Sigma is simply comfortable with his own space. He doesn't feel the need to fill silence with meaningless words, and that independence unsettles those who rely on constant validation. His stillness communicates strength, not the loud, boastful kind, but the kind that holds steady even when everything else demands attention. Silence in his hands becomes both shield and weapon, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one left unsaid. Number 2, he doesn't seek validation. Most men measure their value through acknowledgement, titles, wealth, or recognition from others. Society has long reinforced this idea, from ancient warriors whose worth was tied to their victories to modern professionals who chase promotions and public praise. But the Sigma male breaks away from this pattern entirely. His sense of worth is not built on applause or approval. Instead, it is quietly rooted in his independence, his discipline, and his ability to remain unshaken by outside opinions. This detachment often confuses people. They are used to measuring influence by how loudly someone demands attention, not by how calmly someone ignores it. And that is precisely why the Sigma's presence feels intimidating, even when he doesn't try. Psychologists often highlight that human beings are wired for social validation. Studies show that positive reinforcement, such as praise, activates the brain's reward centers much like food or money. This explains why so many people naturally seek acknowledgement. It feels good. Yet when someone operates outside of this cycle, as the Sigma male does, it creates a sort of social paradox. He doesn't need the dopamine rush of being applauded, and that self-sufficiency unsettles those who rely heavily on external approval. It's not arrogance, but a deep comfort with solitude and self-definition that makes others second-guess him. History gives us examples of men who embodied this same energy. Think of philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his that a man's worth is found within, not in the opinions of others. Or consider figures like Nikola Tesla, who quietly worked in isolation, often disregarding fame or recognition, yet left behind innovations that still shape the world today. These men didn't shout their significance, yet their silent strength carried weight across generations. The Sigma male reflects this archetype in modern form, a man whose very refusal to be defined by others becomes a source of influence. Socially, this can be disarming. In a world where people often perform to be seen, someone who remains grounded and indifferent stands out like a riddle that can't be solved. Others may label him as mysterious, difficult, or even cold. But what they are really sensing is the discomfort of facing someone who cannot be manipulated by flattery or shame. His value system doesn't run on the fuel of external validation, and that makes him unpredictable. In truth, the Sigma's calm detachment is not just a shield, it's a quiet form of power, and it's that very power, invisible yet undeniable, that leaves such a lasting impression. Number 3. He walks away without drama. When others get caught in conflict, they often feel the need to win, whether through arguments, shouting, or attempts at control. But the Sigma male approaches these moments differently. Instead of engaging in the emotional tug-of-war, he quietly withdraws. This act of stepping back may appear passive on the surface, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful responses he can choose. Walking away without a word or a flare of anger leaves the other person without the reaction they were seeking. And that absence of drama can feel more unsettling than any heated confrontation. Psychologists have long studied the dynamics of conflict, and research consistently shows that when emotions escalate, rational thought tends to decline. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical decision-making, can be hijacked by the amygdala, which triggers fight-or-flight responses. This is why people often regret the things they say in the heat of an argument. The Sigma's choice to withdraw is not cowardice, it is a demonstration of emotional discipline. By refusing to give control of his actions to anger, he preserves his energy and maintains clarity. In essence, he steps outside the cycle of provocation, denying others the satisfaction of pulling him into chaos. History and philosophy echo this wisdom. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus advised that no man is free who is not master of himself. By removing himself from conflict rather than reacting impulsively, the Sigma embodies this ancient principle of self-mastery. Even in modern professional environments, conflict management experts note that disengagement is sometimes the most effective way to de-escalate tensions and protect one's mental health. Leaders who remain calm under pressure are remembered not for the noise they make, but for their composure. What unsettles others most about the Sigma's calm withdrawal is the silence it leaves behind. In a world conditioned to equate strength with volume, his refusal to engage feels mysterious, even intimidating. People expect to provoke a response, but when none comes, they are left questioning their own position. Did he walk away because he doesn't care, or because he has already won by not playing the game? That ambiguity is where the Sigma's quiet power lies. His clean break speaks louder than any argument, reminding those around him that true strength is not in domination, but in control. Number 4. His standards are uncompromising. Whether in friendships, work, or relationships, a Sigma male quietly upholds high standards. He doesn't lower them to fit in, and he doesn't explain them away. This unshakable consistency often makes others feel judged, even when he hasn't said a word. It's not arrogance, and it's not about trying to prove superiority. Instead, it reflects a deeper principle. The Sigma male lives by values that are non-negotiable. These values often revolve around independence, integrity, and authenticity, qualities that research in personality psychology has linked with higher self-esteem and stronger boundaries. Unlike people who bend themselves to match social expectations, a Sigma doesn't compromise what matters most to him. This quiet adherence to standards can unsettle those around him. In the workplace, for example, employees may conform to a culture of shortcuts or half-hearted effort. When a Sigma male refuses to do the same, others might interpret his behavior as silent criticism. Interestingly, studies on workplace psychology show that individuals who maintain consistent ethical standards often become moral reminders to their peers, unintentionally highlighting others' compromises. This explains why even silence can be intimidating. His actions speak louder than lectures ever could. In relationships, the same principle applies. A Sigma male doesn't chase validation or bend his identity to keep someone's attention. He knows that genuine respect and connection come from being authentic, not from lowering his boundaries. Sociological research on attraction suggests that people with clear self-concepts are often perceived as more confident and desirable, even if that confidence isn't verbally expressed. But for some, this can feel like a mirror reflecting their own insecurities. When someone is unsure of who they are, being around a man who knows himself can feel unsettling. Friendships, too, are filtered through this quiet consistency. A Sigma won't surround himself with those who exploit his loyalty or drain his energy. Instead, he invests in connections built on mutual respect. Psychologists refer to this as selective social investment, choosing fewer but deeper relationships, a trait that has been found to improve long-term well-being. But to outsiders, it can look like coldness or detachment, when in reality it's about quality over quantity. Ultimately, the Sigma male's refusal to lower his standards is both his shield and his magnet. It protects him from environments and relationships that don't align with his values, and it naturally draws those who resonate with his way of living. What makes this so fascinating is that he rarely intends to intimidate anyone. Yet his quiet strength, his unshakable consistency, and his unwillingness to compromise often reveal unspoken truths about others. That's the paradox of the Sigma male. His silence speaks, and his presence alone can challenge the world around him. Number 5, he's comfortable alone. Most people grow uneasy when faced with solitude. Silence and separation often feel like voids that need to be filled with chatter, companionship, or constant validation. Yet for Sigma males, solitude is not a void but a sanctuary. Their ability to embrace being alone, sometimes even preferring it over social interaction, sets them apart in ways that can appear unsettling to others. In a world where approval and attention are often currency, their self-reliance feels almost unearthly, as though they're operating on a different wavelength altogether. This isn't to say they dislike people, rather their independence means their sense of worth isn't tethered to others' presence or praise. Psychologists have long studied the effects of solitude, and research shows that spending time alone can increase creativity, improve concentration, and enhance emotional regulation. For most, however, too much isolation can feel suffocating, even threatening. Humans are inherently social creatures. Our ancestors survived in groups, relying on cooperation for food, shelter, and protection. That evolutionary wiring is still with us, making the Sigma's comfort in solitude appear strange, like swimming against the tide of human instinct. Yet solitude doesn't drain Sigmas, it recharges them. This is partly why many historical innovators and thinkers, from Nikola Tesla to Isaac Newton, were known to withdraw from society for long stretches of time, using the quiet to fuel groundbreaking discoveries. For Sigma males, solitude is not loneliness, it is freedom. They see it as a space to reflect, refine, and reset. In a noisy culture dominated by social media, public opinion, and the constant pull of external validation, choosing solitude looks rebellious. It can even provoke discomfort in others. Imagine a group of friends who always feel the need to go out together. When one person declines, content with staying home to read or work on a personal project, it challenges the group's unspoken need for collective approval. This simple act of being comfortable alone disrupts the rhythm of dependency, making the independent person seem mysterious, even intimidating. There's also a practical edge to this solitude. Studies show that people who spend regular time alone often display stronger problem-solving skills and higher resilience in the face of challenges. Without leaning on a crowd to make decisions, Sigma males develop clarity and decisiveness. Their independence becomes a kind of silent power, an inner compass that does not waver with every passing trend or opinion. This steadiness unnerves those who rely on group consensus for direction, making the Sigma's independence appear not just unusual but formidable. In essence, solitude is the Sigma male's natural habitat. Where others see emptiness, they see possibility. Where others seek comfort in numbers, they find strength in the self. This profound independence may appear alien to those bound to the constant presence of others, but it is precisely what allows Sigmas to remain centered, self-sufficient, and quietly powerful. Their solitude is not a rejection of humanity, it is a mastery of it. By standing firm in silence, they remind the world that true strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply rests in stillness. Number 6, his focus is unwavering. While many people drift with the tides of trends, gossip, and outside expectations, Sigma males chart a different course. Their strength lies not in how loudly they project themselves, but in how quietly they move through the noise of the world. This stillness, in a society that thrives on constant chatter and attention-seeking, immediately makes them stand out. People are often unsettled by what they cannot easily categorize, and the Sigma male's refusal to conform to predictable patterns sparks both curiosity and unease. His quietness is not emptiness, it is discipline, and discipline is rare enough to be seen as a form of power. Psychologists often note that humans instinctively react to confidence even when it is unspoken. According to social perception studies, individuals who remain calm and composed under pressure are often viewed as more competent and dominant, regardless of their actual status. Sigma males embody this effect naturally. Their calm detachment gives them an air of mystery, and mystery is one of the oldest tools of influence. In history, leaders like Marcus Aurelius or even modern figures like Steve Jobs commanded respect not only by what they said, but also by the weight of their silence and presence. Silence, when used intentionally, forces others to lean in. It turns absence into authority. Another reason Sigma males appear intimidating is the psychological principle known as the scarcity effect. When something or someone is less available, it automatically feels more valuable. In a world where people overshare, chase validation, and compete for attention, the Sigma male does the opposite. His withdrawal makes him scarce, and scarcity magnifies his perceived worth. Research in behavioral economics confirms this. People attribute higher status to individuals who appear self-sufficient and difficult to access. This creates an aura of superiority without a single word spoken. Cultural narratives also reinforce this perception. Movies and literature often present the mysterious loner archetype as powerful, the silent cowboy, the wandering samurai, or the detective who solves problems by thinking deeply rather than talking excessively. These characters resonate with audiences because they represent independence in a world that often demands conformity. Sigma males, in real life, reflect this archetype, and it unsettles those who measure themselves by group approval. Interestingly, intimidation doesn't always come from aggressive action. It often comes from what people project onto the unknown. When others cannot read a Sigma male, cannot predict his thoughts or reactions, they fill in the blanks themselves, usually with exaggerated assumptions of power or danger. This psychological phenomenon, called projection bias, means that the Sigma's silence is not neutral. It becomes a mirror for others' insecurities. In essence, Sigma males are intimidating not because they try to be, but because their way of life challenges the ordinary. Their stillness is resistance in a chaotic world. Their detachment is proof of inner strength, and their mystery is a quiet reminder that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists, and in that existence, it unsettles, inspires, and commands respect. A Sigma male rarely realizes the depth of his influence. What feels normal to him, silence, detachment, or independence, appears as strength to others. This contrast is where the mystery begins. Psychologists have long noted that humans instinctively equate calmness with control and authority. In fact, research in social psychology shows that people who speak less in group settings are often perceived as more powerful even when their actual influence is minimal. For the Sigma male, this silence isn't a tactic, it's simply his natural state. Yet to others, it feels like an unshakable confidence. Detachment adds another layer. While many men seek validation through attention or approval, the Sigma thrives on autonomy. In evolutionary psychology, independence signals self-sufficiency, a trait historically linked to survival and leadership. Without meaning to, the Sigma projects an aura of dominance by simply existing outside the need for external affirmation. And then there's his quiet confidence, not displayed in bravado, but in a steady, almost unbothered demeanor. In a world addicted to noise and constant display, such stillness can be unsettling. It forces others to measure themselves against someone who doesn't compete for the spotlight, which can feel intimidating. The Sigma may think he's just minding his own business, but others see a man who doesn't bend, doesn't chase, and doesn't need, making his presence feel like a mirror that exposes their insecurities. Ironically, the Sigma is least aware of this power, and that's what makes it all the more profound. There comes a point in a man's life when the noise of the outside world fades, and the quiet strength within begins to speak louder. For Sigma males, this usually happens around their 30s and 40s. It's a period when the trials of youth, the confusion of identity, and the endless comparisons to others finally give way to clarity. When you look at a Sigma male in his 20s, you often see a man who is quietly observing. He's not rushing, not scrambling to prove himself, not fighting for validation. But to the outside world, that detachment can be misunderstood. People may label him as distant, aloof, or even aimless. What they don't realize is that he is laying a foundation, brick by brick, for a life that cannot be shaken easily. The 30s and 40s mark the beginning of harvest for that long preparation. Unlike many who peak early and decline, Sigma males mature like fine steel, gaining resilience with each year. By this stage, they've tested their limits, endured failures, and carried scars that taught them lessons no book could offer. These scars don't weaken them, they harden their resolve. It is also at this stage that they become fully aware of the depth of their independence. They've lived long enough to see how conformity can trap men into roles they never wanted and how chasing acceptance leaves many unfulfilled. Sigmas understand this truth better than most. Freedom comes at the cost of solitude, but it also brings unstoppable power. After 30 and 40, Sigma males are no longer seeking permission to live their truth. They have the wisdom to filter out noise, the discipline to sustain their vision, and the calmness to move with precision. This is why a Sigma male often appears unstoppable past this point. Not because he has suddenly changed, but because the world is only just beginning to see the strength he has quietly cultivated for decades. Let us explore the deeper reasons behind this transformation. Number 1, clarity of purpose. In youth, many men scatter their energy in multiple directions, often pulled by expectations from family, society, or even peers. The 20s are typically a time of experimentation, switching jobs, chasing fleeting interests, or trying to keep up with social norms. This restless period is not necessarily wasted, as it exposes men to different paths, but it often leaves them feeling fragmented and without a strong sense of purpose. For Sigma males, however, something begins to shift as they step into their 30s and 40s. Unlike men who continue to rely on external validation, Sigmas begin cutting away distractions that no longer serve them. They refine their focus, guided by an inner compass that tells them what truly matters. This refinement is not accidental, it is the product of years spent observing, analyzing, and quietly learning. Studies in developmental psychology show that by the age of 30, most men's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and self-regulation, has reached full maturity. This biological shift often explains why impulsive behavior decreases and long-term vision strengthens. For Sigma males who already thrive on independence and introspection, this neurological grounding becomes a superpower. They start channeling their energy into fewer but more meaningful pursuits, which creates exponential growth in personal and professional areas. History offers examples of men who became formidable in their later years. Winston Churchill was dismissed as a failure in his youth, but became one of the most influential leaders in his 60s. Similarly, Colonel Harlan Sanders founded KFC at the age of 65 after years of setbacks. Sigma males resonate with these stories because their path is rarely linear. They're not chasing early glory. They're cultivating resilience, clarity, and discipline that only sharpen with age. By the time they hit their 30s and 40s, Sigma males live not for applause, but for alignment. Their choices are stripped of pretense, their priorities sharpened like a blade. This clarity gives them power, because when a man knows exactly what he wants and wastes nothing on what doesn't matter, his focus becomes unstoppable. It is not the loud hustle of youth, but the quiet, deliberate march of maturity that makes Sigma males formidable in this stage of life. Number 2, financial and career stability. Sigma males may not always rush to chase trends, shortcuts, or flashy opportunities, but that slow start often conceals a much deeper strength. In their younger years, they are observers, quietly studying systems, people, and patterns, while others burn themselves out chasing quick wins. Instead of scattering their energy, they learn to conserve it, focusing on what truly matters. This patient, disciplined approach might make them appear like late bloomers, but it's precisely this restraint that sets the foundation for their success later in life. By the time they reach their 30s and 40s, the fruits of that consistency begin to show in ways that surprise those who once underestimated them. One of the defining traits of Sigma males is their approach to money. They rarely fall for consumerism or the pressure to constantly upgrade to the latest trend. Psychologists call this the ability to resist short-term temptations in favor of long-term rewards. Studies like the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment show that people who master delayed gratification often achieve more stability and success in adulthood. For Sigmas, this principle becomes second nature. Instead of debt-fueled lifestyles, they prioritize savings, investments, and sustainable habits. They may not flaunt wealth early on, but their discipline compounds quietly, leading many to financial independence earlier than expected. What makes this independence especially powerful is not just the money itself, but the freedom it brings. When you don't depend on constant approval, social validation, or even a paycheck to maintain your identity, you become very difficult to control. Economists often highlight that financial security reduces vulnerability to manipulation, whether from employers, social groups, or even relationships. For the Sigma male, this is not just economic, it's psychological armor. It gives them the ability to walk away from toxic environments, choose projects aligned with their values, and live life on their own terms. By midlife, what looked like a slow climb reveals itself as a strategic ascent. The Sigma's quiet choices, discipline, patience, and self-reliance create a life of stability and freedom. While others scramble to maintain appearances, the Sigma enjoys the rare privilege of autonomy. And that is why, when he reaches this stage, he becomes nearly impossible to sway or control. Number 3, emotional detachment turns into mastery. By this stage in life, Sigma males develop a resilience that many people spend decades chasing. They are no longer shaken by gossip, rejection, or failed relationships. What once cut deeply now slides off like water on stone. This shift isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling, it's about gaining perspective. Modern psychology often emphasizes that emotional maturity comes when we stop letting emotions control our actions and instead treat them as signals, like dashboard lights in a car. A Sigma male understands this well. If anger flares, he doesn't see it as a command to lash out, but as a sign to check what boundary has been crossed. If sadness rises, he takes it as a moment to pause and reflect, not a reason to crumble. This detachment is not indifference, it's mastery. Interestingly, neuroscience supports this mindset. Studies on emotional regulation show that people who engage their prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, are better at calming the amygdala, the center of fear and stress. In practice, this means they can stay grounded in situations that might overwhelm others. Sigmas embody this ability. While others might spiral after rejection or lose composure in the face of criticism, the Sigma male steadies himself with calm strength. He sees every challenge as data, not drama. Life becomes less about avoiding pain and more about interpreting it wisely. This transformation also explains why Sigma males appear so unshakable in adulthood. Their detachment from gossip stems from recognizing its emptiness. Their peace after failed relationships comes from understanding that loss doesn't define worth. Many spiritual traditions echo this lesson too. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus taught that we should not be ruled by things outside our control, And Buddhist teachings remind us that suffering comes from clinging. In this sense, the Sigma mindset is not just a personal strategy, but part of a timeless human truth. Strength comes from mastering the self, not the world. And when a man reaches that point, he moves with a calm power that others can sense but rarely understand. Number 4, deep self-knowledge. Sigma males spend much of their early lives in quiet observation, not only of the world but also of themselves. Unlike many who rush through their 20s chasing status, validation, or competition, Sigmas take a different approach. They become students of their own minds, testing their boundaries, reflecting on their failures, and refining their strengths. This long process of introspection means that by the time they reach their 30s and 40s, they know themselves with remarkable clarity. Self-awareness is one of the most powerful tools a man can have, and psychology consistently shows that individuals with higher self-awareness demonstrate better decision-making, stronger emotional intelligence, and greater resilience under stress. For Sigmas, this knowledge becomes a compass, allowing them to navigate life without wasting time in pursuits that don't align with their true abilities. Efficiency becomes their hallmark. Because they are not caught in the endless cycle of competing with others, they focus instead on optimizing what works best for them. Research in behavioral economics suggests that energy and time are the most finite resources a person has, and how one invests them determines long-term success. Sigma males understand this instinctively. They do not spread themselves thin trying to master everything. They double down on their unique strengths and design their lives around them. This is why many people notice that Sigmas in their 30s and 40s appear to suddenly rise in influence or success. It isn't sudden at all. It's the result of years of groundwork, discipline, and refining their approach. By midlife, the Sigma has little interest in external validation. The noise of comparison fades, and what remains is a man who acts with precision, conserving his energy for what truly matters. This is both liberating and intimidating to those around him. While others may still be chasing approval, the Sigma moves differently, calm, deliberate, and highly effective. It's this combination of deep self-knowledge and efficient action that makes him appear unstoppable during these years. His success is not accidental, but the natural outcome of years spent mastering himself first, before trying to master the world. Number 5, respect through actions, not words. Younger men often believe that words are the sharpest tools to prove their worth. They argue, boast, or constantly explain themselves, hoping that their voice alone will command respect. Yet as time passes, experience teaches a different truth. For Sigma males, this transformation is particularly striking. By the time they reach maturity, they understand that silence carries more weight than speeches. Their confidence no longer depends on convincing others, it rests on results. In fact, studies on communication psychology show that nonverbal cues often account for over 70% of how people perceive confidence and authority. Silence, when combined with a track record of consistency, becomes a far more persuasive language than any string of words. Take the workplace as an example. Younger men may argue their way through meetings, trying to dominate conversations with opinions. Meanwhile, older Sigmas often sit quietly, listening, observing, and analyzing. When they finally speak, or sometimes when they don't, the room takes notice. Why? Because their past actions have built credibility. A project delivered successfully, a crisis handled calmly, or years of reliability have already spoken for them. This mirrors the principle of ethos in rhetoric. Credibility is not what you say about yourself, but what others witness in you. The Sigma male embodies this principle effortlessly as he grows older. Silence also has a psychological effect. People are naturally uncomfortable with it, often rushing to fill the gap. But a man who is at ease with silence radiates composure. Neuroscience research suggests that silence itself can lower stress levels and improve decision-making, which is why seasoned Sigmas often appear unshakable. Their calmness is not passive, it's a deliberate choice, a discipline that younger men often lack. By saying less, they avoid unnecessary conflicts while still commanding respect through presence and proof. Ultimately, the lesson is that strength is not found in noise, but in quiet mastery. Older Sigmas understand that every argument won may feed the ego, but every result delivered feeds legacy. People don't remember the countless words spoken in defense of worth. They remember the undeniable impact left behind. In this way, Sigma males demonstrate a timeless truth. Silence, backed by results, is the loudest voice a man can ever have. Number 6, independence becomes power. By the time Sigma males reach a certain stage in life, something fascinating begins to happen. They stop caring about fitting into predefined boxes or chasing approval from people who never truly mattered. Instead, they lean into their natural independence, often choosing solitude over shallow, surface-level connections. To outsiders, this may look like withdrawal, but in reality, it's the opposite. It's liberation. This detachment frees them from the subtle traps of society, where many spend endless energy maintaining appearances, engaging in small talk, or building networks that don't bring real fulfillment. For the Sigma male, letting go of these distractions creates space for clarity, purpose, and self-mastery. Psychologists often note that human beings are wired for social belonging. But studies also reveal that too much emphasis on shallow social validation can lead to stress, burnout, and even a weaker sense of identity. Sigma males seem to intuit. By stepping back, they preserve their mental bandwidth and emotional energy for things that matter most: personal growth, deep passions, and meaningful relationships, rather than fleeting ones. Their solitude is not loneliness. It is a conscious investment in their own well-being. History provides striking examples of this trait. Think of great thinkers like Nikola Tesla or philosophers such as Arthur Schopenhauer, both of whom lived much of their lives outside conventional social circles. Their solitude allowed them to pursue insights and breakthroughs that would have been impossible if they had spent their days caught in endless social obligations. There's also a biological angle to this. Neuroscientists have found that periods of solitude activate the brain's default mode network, the part responsible for introspection, creativity, and problem solving. When Sigma males choose time alone, they're not just avoiding drama, they're literally giving their minds the space to innovate and reflect. This helps explain why many Sigma males, as they mature, seem to move with quiet confidence. They're no longer pulled in a dozen directions by society's demands. Instead, they conserve their energy and channel it into what resonates with them on a deeper level, whether it's building something, mastering a skill, or shaping a life of freedom. In the end, their independence isn't rebellion for its own sake, it's a refined choice. By focusing less on fitting in, they gain more control over their lives, and in that freedom they find both peace and power, two qualities that once developed make them nearly unstoppable. Number 7, the scar advantage. Failures, heartbreaks, and setbacks are not just barriers along life's path, they are some of its most valuable teachers. Each difficult experience leaves behind a scar, not simply as a wound, but as a marker of survival. By the time a man reaches his 30s or 40s, these scars become less about pain and more about strength. They turn into armor. Where once they were raw reminders of loss or failure, they now symbolize resilience and wisdom. Psychology backs this up through the concept of post-traumatic growth, which describes how people who endure hardship often emerge with deeper self-awareness, stronger values, and sharper priorities. In other words, resilience isn't formed in comfort, but in fire. At this stage of life, many men, especially Sigma males, find themselves calmer, steadier, and less consumed by the noise of proving themselves. They learn to choose battles wisely and preserve their energy for what truly matters. Emotional scars, like physical ones, tell a story. Heartbreak teaches who is worthy of trust. Failures sharpen focus, and setbacks train problem solving. Studies even show that people in midlife often display greater emotional regulation compared to younger adults, simply because they've lived enough to know what's worth their time. History is full of examples where failure paved the way to greatness. Thomas Edison didn't see his many attempts at the light bulb as failures, but as steps toward success. Likewise, the scars of experience aren't burdens, they're roadmaps. By carrying them, a man doesn't become invincible, but he becomes unshakable. He no longer fears storms because he has already walked through them and survived. Number 8, legacy mindset. Finally, Sigma males begin thinking beyond themselves. Their perspective shifts from chasing short-term rewards to building a legacy that lasts. This transformation is often tied to psychological maturity and life experience. Research in developmental psychology, such as Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development, shows that men in their 30s and 40s enter a phase of generativity versus stagnation. This means they start focusing less on personal gratification and more on creating something meaningful for the future, whether that's in business, art, mentoring, or family life. For Sigma males, this shift is especially powerful because of their natural independence and strategic mindset. Instead of seeking validation from peers or competing for temporary wins, they channel their energy into projects and goals that can outlive them. History shows countless examples of men who only reached their peak influence in midlife. Think of figures like Steve Jobs, who revolutionized technology in his 40s, or J.R.R. Tolkien, who published in his 60s. The Sigma male's focus on legacy makes him unstoppable because he no longer plays for applause in the present. He plays for eternity with his work and impact, becoming a timeless reflection of who he truly is. By the time a Sigma male reaches his 30s and 40s, he has walked through silence, carried unseen struggles, and endured seasons that shaped him in solitude. What others mistook for distance was preparation. What looked like delay was refinement. At this stage, he is no longer defined by youthful restlessness or the need for external validation. He has clarity of purpose, the strength of scars turned into wisdom, and the calm independence to move without seeking approval. The Sigma male becomes unstoppable not because he suddenly gains something new, but because the years have quietly stripped away everything unnecessary, leaving only discipline, resilience, and vision. While others may fear growing older, Sigmas often find their prime beyond 30 and 40. They are proof that masculinity matures with time, that true value deepens with age, and that silence can be the loudest form of strength. So if you are in your 20s feeling uncertain, remember this: your path is not rushed, and your time will come. If you're in your 30s or 40s, embrace this season. It is the moment your years of quiet building begin to shine. The world may not always understand the Sigma male, but it cannot deny the power he carries once he steps fully into himself. Some walk through life unnoticed, blending into the background, while others leave a trail of whispers wherever they go. They don't chase attention, yet people can't help but watch. They don't need to dominate, yet their presence demands respect. These are the Sigma males, silent, calculated, and unpredictable. In a world that is loud and relentless, where hierarchies, expectations, and social systems scream for compliance, most men respond with effort, aggression, or anxiety. The Sigma male, however, operates differently. He observes, he analyzes, he moves without seeking approval or validation, understanding something most will never grasp. True power is quiet, and influence is invisible until it becomes undeniable. This is what makes him dangerous, not because he actively seeks conflict, but because he cannot be controlled. His danger is subtle, penetrating spaces where chaos and impulsivity dominate. In meetings, he sits quietly, calculating his next move with precision. In relationships, he engages selectively, revealing his depth only when it serves a purpose. In life, he moves strategically, ensuring that no one else dictates his path. Psychology studies on personality types, particularly those exploring dominance and introversion, support this idea. Individuals who score high in self-reliance, emotional regulation, and strategic thinking often command influence without overt displays of power. The Sigma male embodies this, having mastered himself before the world can attempt to shape him. No manipulator can pull strings, no alpha can overshadow him, and no external noise can sway his focus. He doesn't compete in pre-established arenas, he builds his own. From a social dynamics perspective, this self-containment and selective engagement allow the Sigma male to navigate both hierarchical and chaotic systems with agility and foresight. This mastery over self, coupled with an innate ability to read and respond to others, creates an aura of quiet dominance, a presence that is both magnetic and formidable. Unlike traditional leaders who rely on assertion and visibility, the Sigma male wields influence like an invisible force, shaping outcomes without ever demanding the spotlight. In essence, his power is subtle, his strategy meticulous, and his danger undeniable, not through aggression, but through the unshakable control he holds over his own life. Today we explore 8 ways Sigma males show that they're dangerous, not through force, not through spectacle, but through precision, control, and the quiet mastery of the self. Point 1. He disrupts without aggression. The world thrives on noise, spectacle, and overt displays of dominance. Society teaches us to believe that power is measured by volume, aggression, and visible control. Yet the Sigma male operates in a realm that most cannot perceive, a subtle dimension where presence itself commands authority. He does not announce his arrival with fanfare. Instead, he moves silently, deliberately, and with an almost imperceptible grace, like a shadow that slips between cracks in the social fabric. When he enters a room, he does not compete for attention, and yet attention is inevitably drawn to him. Scientists studying human behavior and influence, such as those in social psychology, often note that certain individuals can affect group dynamics without speaking a word, simply through body language, energy, and the strategic use of silence. This is the Sigma male in action. His influence is absorbed unconsciously by those around him, and even systems that seem unshakable feel subtle tremors in his presence. Unlike traditional leaders who demand recognition, the Sigma does not seek to dominate. His impact is a natural byproduct of his independence and self-mastery. Neuroscience has shown that human brains respond strongly to unexpected patterns and behaviors. This is why a Sigma male's calm, unorthodox approach creates both curiosity and tension. People notice him before they understand why, and his actions often inspire imitation or anxiety, even without intention. In many ways, he functions as a living disruption, challenging norms and expectations simply by being true to his own path. Historical figures who operated outside conventional hierarchies, visionaries, inventors, and revolutionary thinkers often exhibited similar traits. They reshaped environments quietly but irrevocably. The Sigma male embodies this timeless archetype, merging observation with action and intuition with restraint. He does not seek conflict, yet systems that relied on predictability and control find themselves unsettled in his wake. Influence, like a subtle vibration, radiates from him and alters the trajectory of those nearby. It is neither loud nor boastful. It is undeniable, insidious in the best sense, and deeply magnetic. The disruption he causes is never premeditated, for it is not sought. It is the inevitable consequence of existing in a way that the world is unprepared to understand. His presence is felt long before it can be labeled, leaving a lingering impression on minds and systems alike, and proving that true power often lies not in force, but in the silent mastery of self and the quiet reshaping of the world around him. Point 2, he sees patterns others miss. Where others perceive chaos, he sees patterns, an underlying order that is invisible to most. The world is a maze of social structures, unspoken rules, and hidden hierarchies, and to him these are not mere background noise, they are a map. Every conversation, every gesture, every fleeting glance carries information that he instinctively decodes, turning what others dismiss as trivial into actionable insight. His silence is rarely empty, it is deliberate, a shield that conceals meticulous observation and mental calculation. In social settings, the average person reacts instinctively, often swayed by emotions or peer pressure, but he absorbs the environment, analyzing motives, connections, and opportunities with the precision of a chess master surveying the board. Research in behavioral psychology shows that individuals who can read subtle social cues, micro-expressions, tone shifts, and body language often wield influence without overt authority. This is precisely how he operates, quietly, strategically, and with unmatched foresight. He anticipates outcomes before they materialize, positioning himself in spaces where others cannot compete. Where many stumble blindly, he moves with calculated intention, predicting reactions and preempting problems. It is not arrogance, it is a disciplined understanding of cause and effect, a recognition that every action, no matter how small, sends ripples through the social and professional spheres around him. Neuroscientific studies reveal that high-functioning individuals often exhibit heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making, planning, and understanding social hierarchies, an ability to weigh options and foresee consequences that appears almost instinctual. In essence, he transforms observation into power. To the casual observer, his presence may seem enigmatic, even intimidating. He does not seek validation, nor does he compete for attention. Instead, he conserves his energy, directing it only where it matters, making calculated moves that others can neither predict nor counter. The quiet dominance he exerts is not built on aggression or charm alone. It is the product of relentless attention to detail, emotional intelligence, and the capacity to see patterns where others see only noise. In a world full of distractions, He thrives in the gaps, the silences, and the overlooked spaces. He reminds us that true influence is rarely loud. It is precise, informed, and inevitable, emerging from an acute awareness of the world that most cannot fathom. Where others see randomness, he discovers order, and it is in that order that his power is made unmistakably clear. Point 3. Self-mastery over impulse. The Sigma male's true power lies not in domination over others, but in mastery over himself, a mastery that precedes any attempt the world might make to define, challenge, or control him. He understands that every choice carries weight, so nothing is left to chance. Decisions are not reactions born from fleeting emotion, but deliberate acts shaped by insight, strategy, and self-awareness. While ordinary men might be tossed by fear, pride, or impatience, the Sigma recognizes these impulses as natural human responses and uses them as tools rather than allowing them to dictate his behavior. Fear can become a guide, highlighting risk and shaping careful preparation. Pride can become a mirror, reflecting areas in which he can improve rather than seeking validation from others. Impatience, when understood and harnessed, transforms into focused energy that propels him toward long-term goals. In this way, emotional intelligence becomes an instrument of subtle strength, far more formidable than brute force or loud aggression. Self-mastery is dangerous because it is silent yet unyielding. Calm precision, honed through awareness and restraint, carries more weight than anger, which is fleeting, reactive, and often self-defeating. History is filled with examples of leaders, inventors, and strategists whose patience and measured approach outmaneuvered rivals, fueled by impulsive rage. The Sigma male operates in a similar realm. His power is not in creating spectacle, but in executing calculated actions that ripple far beyond immediate perception. His environment often underestimates him because he does not need to prove himself. The world only sees the effects of his deliberate choices. This is a mindset rooted in psychological discipline and philosophy, echoing the principles of Stoicism, where internal control and reasoned action triumph over external chaos. Every decision, from the smallest interaction to the largest life-altering choice, is filtered through this lens of self-command. His calm, controlled presence commands respect without demanding it. He moves with intention, aware that true strength is measured not by impulsive dominance, but by the ability to navigate life's unpredictability with clarity and confidence. In a society obsessed with reaction, noise, and immediate gratification, the Sigma male's quiet authority is revolutionary. He demonstrates that the most dangerous power is not the one that lashes out, but the one that remains unfazed, deliberate, and entirely in control of itself, turning internal mastery into an unstoppable force in the external world. Point 4. Independence is his shield. He needs nothing from anyone: approval, validation, money, or praise. This is not a statement of arrogance, but a reflection of complete self-sufficiency, a hallmark of the Sigma male mindset. Independence, in this sense, is often misunderstood as loneliness, but it is far more than that. It is armor. While the majority of people are constantly seeking approval, negotiating social hierarchies, and measuring themselves against the standards of others, he moves through life untethered, guided by his own principles and goals. Psychologists note that this form of self-reliance is a form of emotional intelligence, a recognition that external validation is fleeting and ultimately unreliable. By detaching from the constant need to fit in or impress, he cultivates a rare kind of freedom, one that allows him to operate outside the arenas where men typically compete for power, status, or influence. This independence does not mean he avoids society or lacks ambition. Rather, it means that his actions are motivated by internal standards, not external pressures. Neuroscience has shown that people who rely less on social approval have more resilient stress responses and are better able to make rational decisions under pressure. In a world where most are swayed by opinion, trends, or fear of rejection, he remains untouchable, moving with precision and discretion, almost invisible yet profoundly impactful. The paradox is clear. The less the world can sway him, the more dangerous he becomes, not in a physical sense, but in the quiet power of someone who cannot be manipulated or controlled. Leaders, influencers, and even adversaries often underestimate this kind of strength. assuming that social detachment equates to weakness, when in reality it is an unshakable core that allows him to act with clarity, confidence, and strategic foresight. History is filled with figures who exemplified this principle, from solitary strategists like Miyamoto Musashi, who mastered the art of war through discipline and detachment, to modern innovators who thrived precisely because they refused to conform to conventional expectations. Ultimately, this kind of independence is a rare form of mastery, over oneself, over distractions, and over the subtle pressures that govern ordinary lives. It is both shield and weapon, a quiet, formidable force in a world that constantly tries to define and confine human potential. Point 5, he commands respect without demand. Respect is a currency that cannot be bought, borrowed, or demanded. It must be earned, and the Sigma male understands this principle better than anyone. Unlike those who rely on volume, displays of wealth, or outward aggression to assert dominance, the Sigma's influence is subtle, almost invisible, yet incredibly potent. He doesn't need to announce his presence, it is felt. Neuroscience tells us that human attention is naturally drawn to confidence and competence. When someone demonstrates mastery over their emotions, decisions, and environment, others instinctively recognize and defer to that authority. The Sigma leverages this truth effortlessly. While alphas might command a room with loud proclamations, gestures, or displays of power, the Sigma exerts a quieter, more insidious force. His influence does not come from noise, but from the weight of his integrity, the precision of his actions, and the clarity of his purpose. Studies in social psychology show that people often respect those who operate independently of social validation because self-sufficiency signals competence, security, and confidence, qualities the Sigma embodies. His quietness is not a weakness but a strategy. Every action is calculated, every word measured. In fact, research in leadership and behavioral science confirms that restraint can often be more effective than forceful persuasion. By observing, listening, and understanding the dynamics around him, the Sigma positions himself to act at the precise moment, making his moves more impactful than those of someone constantly seeking approval. This is why his presence is undeniable. It carries an unspoken authority that cannot be ignored. The Sigma does not conform to societal pressures or conventional hierarchies. He defines his own rules, and through this independence he cultivates a magnetic aura. People may not always understand him, but they feel compelled to acknowledge him. It is in this combination of quiet intelligence, strategic patience, and unwavering self-possession that the Sigma earns respect, not by demanding it, not by asserting it, but simply by existing in a way that commands recognition. To witness a Sigma is to see the paradox of subtle dominance. He is everywhere and nowhere, moving through life with a presence that speaks louder than words ever could. His world is one of deliberate action, quiet mastery, and undeniable impact, proving that true respect is not given, it is experienced. Point 6, he is unpredictable and hard to manipulate. A Sigma male's ability to see through manipulation is both fascinating and formidable, and it stems from a combination of keen observation, emotional intelligence, and self-reliance. Unlike most people, he doesn't react impulsively to social cues or pressure. Instead, he analyzes situations quietly, identifying the subtle signals of deception, hidden motives, or hidden agendas. Psychologists have noted that people who possess high emotional intelligence are naturally more resistant to manipulation, as they can read body language, tone, and context with precision, allowing them to anticipate hidden strategies before they are even deployed. For a Sigma male, this skill is almost second nature. When someone attempts to coerce him or play a social game, he often doesn't engage at all. He recognizes early on whether the stakes are worth his energy. This ability to disengage is itself a form of power. While others waste time and energy reacting to drama, he preserves his focus for what truly matters. His unpredictability amplifies this effect. In social psychology, unpredictability is a recognized deterrent. It prevents others from forming patterns or strategies to influence behavior. Because he refuses to conform to expectations, whether from authority, peers, or societal norms, others quickly realize they cannot control him. This independence is not arrogance, it's strategic autonomy. By existing outside conventional manipulation and social coercion, he creates an aura of quiet authority and self-possession. People may try to test him, but their games fail, often leaving them frustrated or bewildered. In essence, his strength lies in his detachment. He moves through life guided by his own compass, unaffected by the pressures or schemes that ensnare those who rely too heavily on external validation. This combination of insight, autonomy, and unpredictability makes the Sigma male uniquely resilient in social dynamics, a figure both enigmatic and untouchable, quietly navigating the world on his own terms. Point 7. He turns solitude into power. Solitude is often misunderstood as loneliness or absence, but in truth, it is one of the most powerful catalysts for growth and creation. While society chases constant stimulation through social media, entertainment, and endless obligations, those who embrace solitude step into a realm where true mastery is possible. Time alone allows the mind to sharpen, focus, and innovate in ways crowded environments rarely permit. Historical figures from Leonardo da Vinci to Nikola Tesla understood this principle, retreating into periods of intense isolation to experiment, invent, and cultivate ideas that would later transform the world. In solitude, the body can be trained with discipline, the intellect honed with study, and the spirit deepened through reflection. Neuroscience even supports the benefits of solitude. Research shows that moments of quiet reflection improve memory, boost creativity, and enhance emotional regulation. Far from being wasted, these hours are investments in personal power and influence. They allow one to observe patterns unnoticed by the distracted masses, to think deeply, and to make connections others miss. Each moment spent alone is an act of preparation, laying the groundwork for achievements that are impossible to reach in constant noise. Solitude is not a void, it is fertile soil. In its quiet, one grows resilient, wise, and strategic, developing skills that ripple outward in subtle but profound ways. Influence, leadership, and creativity are often born in the stillness, proving that those who master the art of solitude are quietly shaping destinies that no crowd can shape for them. Point 8. He leaves impact without visibility. His legacy is a study in subtle power, the kind that moves quietly but leaves an undeniable imprint. Unlike those who chase attention or accolades, he operates in the background, shaping outcomes without ever stepping into the spotlight. Sociologists and historians often note this type of influence. People may not recognize it immediately, but systems, communities, and organizations are fundamentally changed by it. Consider the quiet innovators in technology or science. Think of individuals like Nikola Tesla or Rosalind Franklin, whose contributions shaped entire fields even when the world didn't fully acknowledge them at the time. Similarly, in everyday life, some leaders or thinkers leave behind frameworks, ideas, or cultural shifts that outlast their physical presence, proving that influence doesn't require grand gestures. His work resonates not because it demands recognition, but because it addresses underlying needs, solves persistent problems, and inspires those attuned enough to notice. Psychology supports this. Human memory tends to hold on to the effects of actions more than the personalities behind them, meaning that true impact often lingers invisibly. This type of legacy is powerful because it's enduring, like the roots of a tree that stabilize the soil long after the leaves have fallen. It teaches an important lesson about value and contribution. Significance is not measured in applause or headlines, but in the quiet, lasting change that touches systems, people, and generations. In essence, he demonstrates that influence is an art of subtlety, a craft where impact outlives recognition and where the echo of one's efforts quietly shapes the world in ways most will never fully perceive. Danger is not loud. It does not announce itself. It waits, it observes, it acts with precision. Sigma males are dangerous because they master themselves, move strategically, and leave the world changed without ever seeking recognition. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable.